Good evening. Just to wrap up the council meeting for the City of Grand Rapids for August 8th, 2016. Fairly short meeting this evening, but a couple other things that I would like to touch on is under the consent agenda, we had a release of easements for Block 20 and 21. That's the property behind the old Rialto Theater and some of that in order to do the prep work that we need to do in order to do some of the tarring and stuff back there that needs to happen. We also had a satisfaction of terms on the development agreement that we went into in 1993 with Target Corporation. Once they had satisfied that, how much traffic flow was there going to be a light on 21st Street, how all of that works. That has been satisfied as well, so we approved the termination of that development agreement with Target Corporation. We are going to approve some 1 to 4 day temporary liquor licenses through the St. Joseph Catholic Church. We also approved the lease of the Armory building. When we talked a couple of weeks back about the new polling places, one of them is the Armory. Under rules and regulations, we have to lease that facility for that day from the Army. So we accepted the terms of the lease for the elections, and we will move forward. We also had quotes for the Multiuse Pavilion. As you recall, we've been looking at that Multiuse Pavilion on the back end of the IRA Civic Center. To get that going, we're going to have a fundraiser, and what we're looking at is quotes for structural materials. So we will be out there and we will be looking for quotes there. That was all under the consent agenda. Tonight's department head report, even though it wasn't right after the consent agenda, was from Chief Lebo from the fire department. He did excuse himself. He's still in vacation mode, but it's nice to have Mike back. Talked a little bit about the calls. They've had 147 calls for response. Not all of them were full response. Full response calls were up from 111 to 120, so that would leave 27 calls that did not require full response, but were responded to in part by part of the department. We're going through an ISO audit, and I wrote it down so that I would not forget it. ISO stands for an Insurance Service Office Audit. And what that does is it gives us a rating for a city, and it's based on equipment, response times, and how we do. You pay on your property taxes a premium or a portion of that when you go in there to get your homeowner's insurance based on an ISO rating. Grand Rapids at one time was an ISO rating of 5. We were looking at being bumped because of water issues with the heights of towers and the inability to have backflows. So we made some corrections a few years back, and instead of just holding it at an ISO rating of 5 and avoiding going to 6, we actually dropped to an ISO rating of 4, which is, for a community our size, that's the best rating you can have at a community our size with a volunteer fire department. So if we can continue to hold that ISO rating of 4, we will be extremely pleased from a city standpoint. The audit, we should have the results of that audit back in 3 to 6 months, and then at that point in time, they are looking at the frequency in which we would have audits going out into the future. We had a public hearing this evening. Barb Baird was in, and we wanted to review the proposed and amended 2016 to 2020, our street reconstruction. We need to do that in order to do the bonding. Our new municipal advisors for the City of Grand Rapids, Ellers and Associates, Todd Hagan was up, and along with Barb Baird, we listened to a presentation and are going to be moving forward with the issuance of $2,230,000 worth of GO bonding for the projects for 2016, which is the 5th Avenue Street project right out here, and the work that you've seen on 8th Avenue from the middle school down to the Horn Bridge. So those projects are underway, but we still have to go through the issuance of the part that we would look for in GO bonding. The total project is going to be $4,176,000, but we're only bonding the city through municipal state aid for streets and other monies that we have there, along from the PUC and stuff for infrastructure improvements, accounted for the difference between 2,230 and 4,176 on that. So we did pass that, and the sale of those bonds, we are hoping to take place on or about September 12th. Under the admin side of it, we had a couple of things there. Army Groom, who has been an administrative assistant up in community development for a few years now. Her job title has changed, and she will be administrative assistant permit technician. She's been doing that for quite some time, so we did have some discussion of when is it appropriate to move that. If she was doing the job, why would we only look at going back on reimbursing her pay back to April when she's been doing it since the first of the year? Councilmember Zabinski said it doesn't make sense if she's been doing it since the first of the year not to compensate her since the first of the year. So under a friendly amendment to the initial recommendation, we are moving back to January 1st on compensation for Army Groom as the administrative assistant permit technician. We also appointed Mr. Bruce Baird to the position of Public Works Maintenance 1 position effective August 9th, tomorrow. Bruce has worked for the city as temporary snow removal. He'd been with Hawkinson Construction. He's going to be filling in for a vacated position through retirement, and we're happy to have Bruce back on board with the City of Grand Rapids, a full-time employee. Bruce has also for 8 years been on the fire department, so he's not unfamiliar with how a lot of the stuff works at the city, and we're happy to have him on board. We also are granting permanent status to our building inspector. John Peterson has gone through his temporary phase, and one of the things that we do is once they have satisfactorily met the requirements of the job, his pay jumps by 5% to compensate the move to get him where he needs to be for that position of the building inspector. One other thing we did do, we did have, and we've talked about this for years and years and years. Oh, I shouldn't say years and years, but over the last several years, we've been working with UPM Cumani, Bland and Paper Company, on the exchange of land that would open up the potential of Grand Rapids, the city of Grand Rapids, getting some land. I can tell you now that that land is the property to the west of the hospital and clinic out on Golf Course Road. In exchange, they get Showboat site and the old Public Works building down there that they could have if they choose to expand on a business side. Not guaranteed that that gets a business going in there, but it puts them in a position that should the opportunity come up to expand their business in some way, everything is in place to do that. Along with that, we had to take over the demolition, and the city will be doing that through a contract to have the Public Works buildings and stuff that are currently there. There are 4 buildings. They're having those buildings demoed. So we will be looking for that to happen. And with that, when we get that cleared up, we will be signing off at some point in time here in the next week or so, now that everything is in place. The final phases, we'd done some a little bit back here when we authorized the move to do this, and now we will be moving forward. So UPM now will be the owner of that property over on the river, the former Showboat site, and we will be the owner of the property out on Golf Course Road. We're very happy with the way this has worked out. I'm personally, and I think the council is all excited that this could pave the way for expansion in some type of an opportunity under UPM Cumani. So look forward to hopefully hearing news on that sometime out into the future. We paid the bills, and we will see everyone in 2 weeks. Thanks and have a good evening.